Okay, I'll start. This is a technical discussion of the philosophy. It's fundamental philosophy, but technical nevertheless. And I'm going to present an article that I wrote. It's a brief article, and it took me 4 minutes to narrate on a video. But it's based on this basic philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, starting with Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. So that means Vyavasayatmika. Atmika means having the characteristic of Vyavasaya, which means fixed or resolute. And Buddhi means intelligence. So fixed intelligence. Going on with the basic points, one's Buddhi or intelligence is meant to discern between soul and body, or matter and spirit. And Buddhi is guided by knowledge or jnana. Now I'm just taking these things directly out of the Bhagavad Gita. It's not my concoction. Knowledge or jnana comes from bhakti to Krishna through Vyavasayatmika Buddhi or fixed intelligence. Now notice this, the sort of the cyclic, or there is a sort of a cycle there, that Vyavasayatmika Buddhi or fixed intelligence influences jnana, which influences Buddhi. So, which in turn influences Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. Now, what is the thing that acts within that cycle to increase the jnana, to increase our focus, our resolute intelligence? The thing is the guidance of the guru. And our primary Shiksha guru is Srila Prabhupada. Now, the article that I wrote is here. The biggest conspiracy. The greatest conspiracy causes everything to be lost. We experience the world and we make judgments. Now, in Sanskrit language, that's called buddhi. So I'm translating, although Prabhupada translates intelligence, I'm translating it as judgment in order to make a point here. That's a dictionary definition also, so I'm not going too far astray. The Bhagavad Gita states that fixed buddhi is ideal. Undesirable buddhi is making infinite judgments that arise in a world of loss and gain. Now note this word loss. Again, buddhi means judgment. One's judgment should be fixed on a higher goal that does not concern itself with loss and gain in the world. Now, for most people, the two important issues of the day are the pandemic and environmental destruction. Those two issues threaten loss of life, loss of standard of living, comfort, mobility, or future potential. But those of us who blame conspiracies and politicians, corporations, or influential people for loss don't have fixed buddhi. Those who blame the virus, animal poachers, oil companies, slaughterhouses, chemical companies, don't have fixed buddhi. Their buddhi, or their judgment, is distracted in myriad ways because of the potential for loss. In the Gita, Krishna says that buddhi must be applied to action, to work. Now we've sort of jumped forward, and in the Gita, there is that connection with buddhi or intelligence to work, and it's difficult to understand how buddhi yoga, or the yoga of intelligence, can be so intimately connected with karma yoga, or the yoga of work, karma. So, but it's a fact, and it's a very interesting point that you can understand by studying the 3rd chapter of the Gita. So Krishna says that when work is guided by fixed buddhi, the work is done for elevation and is not concerned with loss or gain. When one works for elevation, one does not think that others are the cause of suffering and loss. And most importantly, when one works for elevation, one does not work for gain, and one does not suffer loss. So I'm going to restate that. When one works for elevation, one is not working for gain. One is not working for gain. Thus, with no question of gain, there's no loss. So that's the theory, but how does it work in practice? When one works for elevation, one uses the results of the work, the money, not for self or family or humanity. Instead, one uses the money to reciprocate with the higher powers, those who supply gain and loss. So this is the crux of the matter, that gain and loss doesn't come from politicians and conspiracies and all these kinds of things. It doesn't even come from the virus. That all these things are coming from the devas, and the devas work for Vishnu or Krishna. So in order to become elevated in this world as individuals or in a societal way, we have to use the results of action, which is the money, to reciprocate with the higher powers. So at the bottom, and that focus on elevation is both individual and collective, that is societal. So proper judgment or fixed buddhi is used to dedicate one's resources and society's resources for elevation to goodness and the transcendental realm. Now, we're particularly, as devotees, we're particularly interested in the transcendental realm. The highest transcendence is to serve the supreme Vishnu or Krishna. And through that service, one experiences enjoyment. On one hand, working for enjoyment in this world is the cause of suffering, plague, pandemic, environmental disaster, the cause of loss, in other words. So on the other hand, working for and experiencing transcendental enjoyment allows us to go beyond loss and gain. So let me just pause a second. Enjoyment. Well, how do we get to enjoyment? We're talking about work and suffering. Now, all of a sudden, enjoyment. Well, there's a concept called dharma, artha, and dharma, artha, and kama. So that means that we do artha, we get gain by working in an honorable way as well as we can, in a responsible way. So gain comes, we look for something. Artha means gain or money. To do what? To kama, to enjoy. So kama really is at the heart of work in this world. And what is that kama? It's basically the contact of the senses with the sense objects. And Prabhupada calls that sense gratification. So again, this paragraph, on the other hand, working for and experiencing transcendental enjoyment allows us to go beyond loss and gain. Otherwise, working for the sense gratification, using the money for sense gratification, causes us to be bound in the world. So we must use our money for transcendental enjoyment. We must learn to enjoy on the transcendental level, or be prepared to lose everything. Now, back to this, where is it? Back to this Vyosatmaka buddhi. So, Vyosatmaka buddhir ekeha kurunandana bahushakha hyanantascha buddhyo yosayanam. So I put the verse in the English word order to give a literal translation. It says, Iha here on this path. Iha here on this path means it's a reference to the previous couple of verses, which begin to discuss buddhi yoga. So here on this path, the resolute intelligence is one, or singularly fixed. O beloved child of the Kurus, which is Arjuna, indeed, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched, unlimitedly many-branched. So Prabhupada translates, those who are on this path, and I put here Buddhi Yoga, that's my addition, are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. And Prabhupada's purport, I'm going to read through this quickly because after this purport, which is rather long, I've summarized it. A strong faith in Krishna consciousness is one that should be elevated to the highest perfection of life. A strong faith in Krishna consciousness that one should be elevated to the highest perfection of life is called, you will say, Atmaka, intelligence. The Chaitanya Charitamrita states, Shraddha Shabde, Vishwasa Kahe, Sudrida, Nishchaya, Krishna Bhakti Kaile, Sarva Karma Kritahoy. So this is Bengali language, meaning that Shraddha means faith. So this Shraddha word, Shabde means word. So this Shraddha word, Kahe, is said to be Vishwasa, Sudrida, and Nishchaya. It means that it's, as Prabhupada translates it, confident, firm faith, and favorable to the discharge of devotional service. Krishna Bhakti means devotional service to Krishna. And what happens? Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. So when one does this kind of bhakti, this fixed type of bhakti, then it takes care of all karmas. All karmas are done. Another concept of karma, we think of karma as work, but karma can also mean duty. So how does Prabhupada say? Subsidiary activities. One automatically performs all subsidiary activities. But it means responsibilities, duties. In the ancient times, karmas meant the rituals that you perform for elevation. So Prabhupada says, faith means unflinching trust in something sublime. When one is engaged in the duties of Krishna consciousness, he need not act in relationship to the material world with obligations to family, traditions, humanity, or nationality. See, that's where this sarva karma krita hoy comes from. Fruitive activities are the engagements of one's reactions from past good or bad deeds. I love this sentence. This is an important sentence. Down at the bottom, fruitive activities are the engagements of one's reactions from past good or bad deeds. It's like we're just like we're standing there in a tennis court with some machine throwing balls at us, and we're just trying to bat those balls. It's like good and bad reactions are just coming at us from our previous activities, and all we can do is respond to them. So that's what this fruitive activities are the engagements of one's reactions from past good or bad deeds. When one is awake in Krishna consciousness, he need no longer endeavor for good results in his activities. When one is situated on Krishna consciousness, all activities are on the absolute plane, for they are no longer subject to dualities like good and bad, which indicate, of course, gain and loss. The highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is renunciation of the material conception of life. This state is automatically achieved by progressive Krishna consciousness. So this is one important stage. It's the distinction between spirit and matter. So this highest perfection is renunciation of the material conception of life. That means soul and body. That means our ahankara, our conception that we're the doer and that we're identified with the body. Now, the resolute purpose of a person in Krishna consciousness is based on knowledge. So remember, we're talking about buddhi, and now we progress to knowledge, because knowledge is relevant. Knowledge guides the buddhi, or the intelligence. So what kind of knowledge is Prabhupada referring to? The resolute purpose of a person in Krishna consciousness is based on knowledge. Resolute purpose means yuvasayatmaka buddhi. Knowledge, Prabhupada says, Vasudeva sarvamiti so mahatma sudurlabha. So Vasudeva sarvam means Krishna is everything. Vasudeva, Krishna is sarvam, everything. So by which one comes to know perfectly that Vasudeva or Krishna is the root of all manifested causes. There's my italics here. As water on the root of a tree is automatically distributed to the leaves and branches in Krishna consciousness, one can render the highest service to everyone, namely self, family, society, country, humanity, and so forth. If Krishna is satisfied by one's actions, then everybody will be satisfied. Now, going back a page, at the bottom, when one is engaged in duties of Krishna consciousness, he need not act in relationship to the material world with obligations to family, traditions, humanity, or nationality. Oh my God, this sounds controversial. We don't have to worry about our family, our humanity, or nationality. So, and this is a reference to this verse that's in italics above from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. And then paging back again, Prabhupada says at the very bottom that if Krishna is satisfied by one's actions, then everyone will be satisfied. Very interesting. If you know a little Sanskrit and you can recognize these words as they relate to Sanskrit, then you can better understand the purports. Service in Krishna consciousness is, however, best practiced under the able guidance of the spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Krishna, who knows the nature of the student and who can guide him to act in Krishna consciousness. So now we switch to another topic, the Guru. As such, to be well-versed in Krishna consciousness, one has to act firmly and obey the representative of Krishna, and one should accept the instruction of the bona fide spiritual master as one's mission in life. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur instructs us in his famous prayers for the spiritual master as follows. Yasya prasadad bhagavat prasado yasya prasadan nagati kutopi dhyayang stuvang stasya yashastri sandhyan Vande Gurukshri Charanaravinda. This song, this praise of the spiritual master, along with 7 other verses, there are 8 verses called the Guru Vastak. Guru Vastak. So the Guru Ashtaka means the 8 verses for the Guru, and this is the last verse. So this is sung in the temples every day. And it means yasya is referring to the Guru, it's whose, meaning the whose prasada, yasya prasadat. So it means prasadat means from his mercy, from the prasad. So from whose mercy we get the Bhagavat prasada, we get the mercy of Bhagavan or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But yasya aprasadat, that's the next. Of course, it's combined in sandhi. That's a combination. Haribol. So, I mean, Haribol. Deborah. Yasya aprasadat means without whose mercy. Nagati kutopi. Nagati means no path. Kutopi means where's the question of any path? It's almost like a double negative. Where is the question of any path? So Prabhupada translates, by the satisfaction of the spiritual master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes satisfied. And by not satisfying the spiritual master, there's no chance of being promoted to the plane of Krishna consciousness. I should therefore meditate and pray for his mercy 3 times a day and offer my respectful obeisances unto him, my spiritual master. Now this is, it almost sounds a little theoretical, a little ritualistic, 3 times a day. but I'm going to page down and we'll see something more that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says. The whole process, as Prabhupada concludes here, the whole process, however, depends on perfect knowledge of the soul beyond the conception of the body. Now we get back to this idea of discrimination or judgment or discernment between the soul and the body. So Prabhupada says the whole process, however, depends on knowledge of the soul beyond the conception of the body, meaning that now we've got to discriminate between matter and spirit, between body and soul. But he says, importantly, not theoretically, but practically. What does that mean? That's where buddhi joins with karma, where buddhi is relevant to karma or action. Buddhi, intelligence, relates to action. When there is no longer chance for sense gratification manifested in fruitive activities. Now, this is another pregnant phrase. When there is no longer chance for sense gratification manifested in fruitive activities. That means that the work of the common person in the world, everyone in the world practically, is working for money in order to use it to sustain life and spend it on comforts for oneself, one's family, one's community, nation, humanity. So here it says that that's fruitive activities, and that work for sense gratification is not desirable. It's no longer relevant for somebody who's got perfect knowledge of the soul. So one who is not firmly fixed in mind, meaning he doesn't have this Atmika buddhi, is diverted by various types of fruitive activities. So here's a summary quickly. I think I already covered everything. Strong faith that bhakti will, first Prabhupada says, strong faith that bhakti will elevate one to the highest perfection is called Atmika buddhi. Atmika buddhi is based on knowledge, jnana, that Krishna is everything, the root of existence. Excuse me. Bhakti means directly working for the root of existence with no obligation to self, family, or humanity. And bhakti is done under the guidance of a guru who gives practical knowledge, jnana, again jnana, which guides buddhi. That knowledge starts with discerning between soul and body, not theoretically, but practically, by giving up sense gratification that arises from fruitive work. Thus, one who does not have Atmika buddhi is diverted by myriad responses to the reactions of past good and bad deeds, causing gain and loss, all for the goal of sense gratification. Now, I included here, just for fun, some just parts, just a brief part of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on this verse, along with Baldev Vidyabhushan. These are directly in our line called Parampara. They're directly in our line from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And as you see, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur preceded Baldev Vidyabhushan, and these are speculations. It says C for circa 1626 to 1708, and then 1700 to 1793. I don't believe those, but they're rough. I know of a specific incident that Baldev Vidyabhushan was in a documented incident around 1728. So I believe that. And I believe that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur had some contact with Baldev. Baldev was not 8 years old when they had that contact. So anyway, a little discrepancy. In this verse, starting with Vishwanath, he writes that the buddhi which is connected with bhakti, which is concentrated on bhakti, is best. And my practice, now this is a quote, this is a translation of a verse in Sanskrit. And he says, my practice or sadhana is to serve, remember, and glorify the lotus feet of the Lord as instructed by my guru. And that is also my goal, or sadhya. So sadhana is practice and sadhya is goal. So it's my life sustaining medicine. I thought it was nice that he says medicine because, of course, that relates to our virus. I cannot give up that sadhana and sadhya. That's my most desirable object, nothing else, meaning that the sadhya, the object, is my most desirable. It's really the only desirable thing in my life, nothing else. And that's my responsibility. I have no other responsibility to accept my sadhana, which is to serve, remember, glorify as instructed by the guru. I may be happy or sad. I may be caught in samsara or not. So these two sentences are vast. It's happy or sad means, okay, loss or gain in the world, happy, sad, pain, pleasure, winter, summer, gain, loss. I guess I said that. All those things, worldly. It says, okay, that may happen. Or I may be caught in samsara or not. I may have to do birth, death, disease, and old age again and again and again. Birth, death, samsara. Or not. There's no loss for me. Let me have only vyosayatmika buddhi and pure bhakti. So the only loss or the only thing to gain, rather, for Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is this vyosayatmika buddhi in pure bhakti. That's what he wants. He wants to be fixed in pure bhakti. And Baldev Yavashan writes something fundamental here. In this verse, the Lord distinguishes the buddhi directed toward nishkama karma from the buddhi directed toward kamya karma. Nishkama karma means work that's done without desire. Now, what kind of desire? Meaning materialistic desire. It doesn't mean without desiring to serve Krishna, because we just learned that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur wants to have yosadhanka buddhi. So that's his desire. That's an elevated desire. But here, nishkama karma means work without desire for material enjoyment or material gain. So he's saying that this buddhi is the kind of intelligence that discriminates between nishkama karma and kamya karma. Kamya means kama, means desire. So mundane desires, materialistic desires. Then I just thought, well, let's talk about a definition of buddhi. Why did I translate it as judgment instead of intelligence? The Sanskrit dictionary translates it a little broadly. It says intelligence, reason, intellect, discernment, or judgment. Prabhupada translates it more narrowly. He translates it as intelligence. He's sometimes, in a few cases, he refers to it as the culture of knowledge, which is understandable because buddhi is closely related to jnana or knowledge. So in a way, I think of jnana as sort of riding on top of buddhi, guiding buddhi. So here he says the culture of knowledge, which I think is rather nice, interesting. Then he calls it devotional service of the Lord. Buddhi is devotional service of the Lord. And sometimes he translates buddhi yoga in that way, because it means buddhi yoga and karma yoga mean doing work for Bhagavan, for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In my article here, I use the word judgment rather than intelligence to indicate discernment between a higher reality and a lower one. In other words, rather than getting involved in issues that involve loss, like conspiracies, that almost universally involve some kind of loss, and the fear of loss, rather than getting involved in those, because those are so many, there's so many conspiracies. And you know, somebody might be conspiring to steal away my girlfriend, or somebody might be conspiring, a thief might be conspiring to steal my goods in my house, or everybody is subject to some kind of conspiracy, whether it's a grand one or a small one. So rather than be concerned with all these potentials for loss, one should use one's judgment or one's intelligence. Somehow, for me, I think the word intelligence, because of the way it's used philosophically in the Bhagavad Gita by Srila Prabhupada, I feel it's not, it doesn't communicate itself well enough unless it's very clearly defined. It doesn't communicate itself well enough to the modern person. As soon as you say intelligence, they think of Einstein or somebody that, so it's not, or intelligence quotient. So just because somebody has intelligence quotient doesn't mean, some idiot with below average intelligence in terms of intelligence quotient could be a great devotee. I mean, I'm saying idiot, I mean, just in the sense of intelligence quotient, could be a high devotee because he knows how to discriminate between matter and spirit. So there you go. Conspiracies could be real or suspected, and their normal goals are to deprive others of their freedoms or privacy, financial well-being, victory, control, health, sanity, occupational position, political position, relationships with others, and on and on. But the key word is depriving. That means loss. Conspiracies involve concerns about loss. And I have a little time left here. I think I'm okay. I'm going to, I mean, there's a lot in that, I think, which I'm also, I like that there's a lot in that. There's another. Now I want to tell you about a conspiracy that really touches my heart. Maybe you know about this, this devotee. Ananta Shanti was the first Soviet Hare Krishna devotee. Before the Russian Confederation, there was a union of Soviet Socialist Republic, or republics, I guess, I don't know. Anyway, so because of his active preaching throughout the USSR, and because of the spiritual influence he had on many people, he was a little charismatic, this guy. In the 1980s, he was subjected to severe persecution for 5.5 years at the hands of the staff at various Soviet psychiatric hospitals. He was released in about 1987 or 88 at the request of the Australian Prime Minister. Devotees demonstrated throughout the world, and somehow they managed to influence the Australian Prime Minister, who spoke to Gorbachev. At that time, there was a transition. The government backed down from its communist position, and there was a change in government, a lot of changes. So this Australian Prime Minister met with Gorbachev, and he requested that various people be released, some Jews who were being held and some others. And among them was Ananta Shanti. So this is Prabhupada going to Moscow. He visited one time in 1971. And while he visited Shyam Sundar, I don't know if you read the book called Chasing the Rhino. Shyam Sundar has written a couple of volumes, 1 and 2, I guess, and maybe going on to 3, I'm not sure, called Chasing the Rhino. It's his time with Prabhupada. So Shyam Sundar was walking on the street and he met this guy, Ananta Shanti, who was not he was just a Russian young person. He was not a devotee yet. So he brought him to meet Prabhupada, and Prabhupada spoke to him. And then Prabhupada sent Mandakini. When Prabhupada got to London, I was temple president. Mandakini was there in the temple. Prabhupada asked Mandakini to go to Russia. So Hari Vilas and I gave her a ticket to go to Russia and marry Ananta Shanti and teach him about Krishna consciousness. And later, in the 70s, Hansaduta went and he taught him more about Krishna consciousness, playing the instruments and cooking and everything. And so Ananta Shanti, through the 70s and into the 80s, he was preaching and underground. And as I said, for 5.5 years, he was finally hospitalized because the Krishna conscious movement started to become a threat to the authorities. So I'm telling you this story because that's a controversy. Here he is on the right, Ananta Shanti, with his bead bag, and here he is with a bunch of Russian devotees from the old days, and here he is as a young man, again, in the middle, and here he is in 2013. And he passed away in 2013, shortly after this. Now here's the Russian devotees. So on the basis of this man who went through so much difficulty and who was persecuted, there's a conspiracy. More Russian devotees. Okay, I've done a lot here. So, questions, comments?
I have something I want to add, but I'm finishing putting it together. So I don't know if anybody else wants to step in and make a comment. That'd be great. I'll buy some time.
So I really appreciate. There's a few points that I want to comment on. One is and this is of course very much kind of common knowledge among Krishna conscious folks, is that when one becomes Krishna conscious on the transcendental plane, then one isn't responsible for for one's for one's duties to family and so forth, as you point out. But also, there's compassion and such still exists, and so it doesn't mean we should just kind of put our families out to pasture or whatever. The example is my Guru Maharaj. He was a sannyasi, at the time, and he took a very active role in the care for his elderly parents as they progressively neared passing from the world. And he said it was just an incredible experience for him, and he pointed out, yeah, and he was, and he said, yeah, and I wasn't supposed to have any duties to family or anything like that, but he still took on that role, and it helped him, in his spiritual progress. So I think, especially, back in the day, the thought was, well, we can just kind of abandon our families, but I don't think that that's necessarily what that's about. But what's your perspective on that, Dayananda Prabhu?
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that. That's an interesting point. First of all, it's not a. I think we have to understand what the point of this is. It's not a ritualistic thing. Now, I remember when I first started coming to Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada's brother passed away, and Prabhupada commented that it obviously was something that was, it was his brother, and he was must have been very close to him. And so he commented on that, saying that devotee is detached. And when Swarup Damodar Maharaj, his parents, one of his parents passed away, and Swarup Damodar Maharaj was one of Prabhupada's leading devotees. He founded the Bhaktivedanta Institute, and anyway, one disciple that Prabhupada was very fond of, and Prabhupada told him not to go to the funeral. And so, and a lot of devotees were encouraging, a lot of the ISKCON devotees and senior members were encouraging devotees just to give up their everything and pursue Krishna consciousness. So that's on one hand. But what's the purpose of that? What's the reason for not focusing so much on family and community and that kind of thing? The reason is that, as just to summarize what I said in the talk, it's because our whole tendency in this world is, in Prabhupada's language, fruitive activities. It's karma phala. It's karma means action and phala means fruits, and we use the fruits for kama, for sense gratification. And the whole focus of a pure devotee is nishkama karma, is to do action without desire, without desiring the fruits, without desiring mundane enjoyment. We're not to that stage. I mean, this is recommended to, now I'm going to temper it. This is recommended for an advanced stage, like the sannyas stage, where somebody becomes completely detached. However, it is also recommended to a degree in household life, in all life. And if one is a brahmachari or brahmacharini, then one should also be similarly detached. Now, I personally feel that in ISKCON, there has been too much emphasis on brahmachari and brahmacharini, that with overemphasis, and when somebody extends his period as a brahmachari, maybe throughout his 20s and even into his 30s. I know a very nice brahmachari who got married when he was 40 years old. So it becomes problematic then. If you spend a few years, 2, 3, 5 years as a brahmachari, completely renounced, give up everything, give up all responsibilities to family and society and so forth, and then get trained and get accustomed to little renunciation, and then become a householder, and still you have a little taste for that concept of renunciation. And it's not like you have to buy a big palace of a house or something like that. You maintain your life, and you maybe even you live communally with other devotees. In this country, we're unaccustomed to living communally. In India, at least in the old days, the huge families would all live together and chip in together. Now everyone has to have their own house. So I'm in favor of more practical living, so that more efforts can be spent as householders to contribute to the Sankirtan movement. So there is that direction, and Prabhupada encouraged that direction. And I feel that in spite of the fact that, yes, your Guru Maharaj made that decision to take care of his parents, that's a fine decision, honorable decision. And it also indicates that we are interested in maintaining our relationship with society to a degree. But for me, and my perspective is that the ISKCON society has swung too far the other direction. It's sort of like a pendulum. On one side, in the 70s, we were totally absorbed in the Sankirtan movement without any regard at all for the external society. And now there's a tendency for this overcompensation, in my view. And certainly it has to be based on the individual. It's not a ritualistic thing. In my view, the whole Krishna consciousness is not ritualistic, although we have our regular. I was just reading today, sorry, I'm going to go into another story here, but just briefly, I was reading a story that Shrutakirti said. In 1970-71, Prabhupada sort of made a rule that everyone should go to Mangalarti. Mangalarti was a big thing. And then it was almost as if we obey 4 regulative principles and Mangalarti. It was so important. So Shrutakirti was Prabhupada's secretary in LA, and he decided to go to Mangalarti, and excuse me, and Prabhupada wanted him. So this devotee came and said, Shrutakirti, Prabhupada is ringing the bell. Prabhupada would ring a bell. So Shrutakirti came in to see Prabhupada and said, why have you gone to Mangalarti? Don't go to Mangalarti. I want you available 24 hours. So it was an exception, certainly. He was the exception, but there's always an exception. So yes, you can quote Guru Maharaj. And for me, that's kind of an exception. And there may be many exceptions in that case, maybe not just one, but as I say, I think the pendulum has gone a little too far the other direction. We have to be sensitive to what people say in society, but I've been for maybe 30 years or more interested in seeing Krishna consciousness develop more professionalism, ISKCON develop more professionalism, and have a better relationship with society. And now it's my opinion that we've gone too far. Just my opinion.
I like that you pointed out the distinction between intelligence quotient and judgment, because, you know, if you spend a lot of time with academics, what most of them, not all, but a whole lot of them, they're really knowledgeable about one thing, and just that one thing. You know, if you go outside of that area of knowledge, you know, that's it. You know, and so yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know.
Well, unfortunately, I've met a number of brilliant people, and because they're brilliant and because they have focused on one area and they have interests in other areas, they're all of a sudden a specialist in every area. You can't, and the problem is that they may be right in many areas, so that they expand it to being always right in everything.
Yeah. And I like to, you know, I think it's always important to, you pointed out, you know, following the instructions of the guru. I think that's, you know, because ultimately the guru is Krishna for the disciple in a very real sense. You know, at least in the instructing sense. So I think that, you know, I think that's very important.
Yeah, I think that I've never read this directly, but I had a very good friend who felt that the relationship with the guru was a manifestation on earth of a spiritual relationship. It's to give us a taste of a spiritual relationship. Now, this person was saying, based on the fact that our relationship with our guru is in service. We serve the guru and the guru gives knowledge, but then the knowledge is, sometimes devotees are a little bit tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashanasya upadekshanti te jnanam. So there's that verse from the 3rd chapter, verse 34, that talks about how the tattva darshins, that's a very important verse of Prabhupada and the devotees, talking about the importance of accepting a guru. The guru gives knowledge. So I think there's really a lot of emphasis on the guru giving knowledge, and that the guru opens my eyes, Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnana Anjana, so Jnana, we open our eyes with knowledge, torchlight of knowledge. So this knowledge. But then when this devotee was saying that the bhakti, the idea of bhakti involves relationship and love, affection, and so the idea that we have affection for the guru, that we serve the guru, and then I like the idea very much. Since then, I tried a little bit to find some direct, it's kind of an inference, but some direct quote from somewhere, but I was never able to, didn't search carefully enough. But I like the idea very much that it's a representation on earth of bhakti, of the relationship that we ultimately have with Krishna, that we're looking for the high rasa. One of the rasas is service, and they involve affection between master and servant, meaning with Krishna. So why not with the guru? So yes, I think it's very important, obviously, for jnana. And jnana is also not, jnana is divided into 3, sambandha, abhidhyaya, and prayojan. So the sambandha jnana is really not very important. And I think that devotees, when they hear knowledge, when they think of knowledge, immediately the idea is sambandha, that it's theoretical. I should learn this, I should learn that, I should learn this prayer, I should learn this, whatever it is, this ritual, this thing, that thing. But abhidhyaya jnana is service, it's active. It means the active component of knowledge, and then it leads to prayojana. So that's the ultimate knowledge, which means to act in relationship with. Now, this is a little bit odd, I think, but there are 3 kinds of knowledge. Like in Spanish, if you say that you know somebody, there's 2 different words.
Yeah.
So it means you're having an acquaintance. So I think of sambandha as having an acquaintance. And then the other knowledge is I really know somebody because I've worked with them. I know somebody functionally. I have a relationship with them, and we work together. I'm married, so I really know that person. I'm friends. I'm so very practical. And then there's this biblical understanding of knowledge, which is kind of very intimate. Like if in the old Bible you read that so-and-so knew so-and-so, and that means, and then they had a child. So that means that it was very intimate knowledge. So I think like that in terms of levels of knowledge, but the middle level is the one that's really important for us. So that guru, our guru gives us indication of how to live life, not just how to learn this or that, what's the use of some Sanskrit tense or something? But we need to learn to live life and to serve, how to serve. Here's another story. I love this story. There's only a few of us and people don't ask questions. Anyway, so the story is just quickly, we went to San Francisco, a few of us. There was only a few devotees in LA at the time, and we went, 5 of us, right in the beginning, first year, I guess. And Rath Yatra, they had Rath Yatra in San Francisco, and there was this kid who was about 16 years old. He came with us, and so he asked Prabhupada, we were sitting with Prabhupada, he said, Prabhupada, do they speak Sanskrit in the spiritual sky? And Prabhupada was sitting right underneath this beautiful painting. Many devotees have seen this painting. They love it. Not painting, but print from this like large size print of Krishna with a calf. And some devotees think it's a deer. It looks very deer-like, very beautiful. And Krishna himself looks very effeminate. He has this very beautiful, I've heard people come in the temple and say, who's that woman? Just very attractive features, and looks like he's holding a deer, and the deer's neck is outstretched and up to Krishna. And so Prabhupada stuck his neck up, almost like he was imitating the calf. And then he kind of stuck his tongue out and said, this Sanskrit, no, he says, this calf is just licking Krishna. So in some place we can see that everyone speaks Sanskrit, and in another place here, Prabhupada emphasized the relationship. It's not knowledge. We don't just want to get knowledge. We're going for the relationship. So yeah, we can talk for another hour, right? Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, this is Nitya Kishori. Please accept my humble obeisances.
Accept mine.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhu. This is very enlivening, and again, I really like the point about how you were distinguishing between knowledge and developing that relationship with Krishna, love for Krishna. During this quarantine, we were trying to learn some verses, especially my kids, So I could definitely relate to this. And I think I'm going to meditate on this while we're learning, to not forget that ultimately this is for love and devotion to Krishna, not just getting well versed with Sanskrit or, the spiritual language, not just the language, but it's beyond that. It's love for Krishna. Thank you for that, Prabhu.
It is important. If you like, you can look at, there's a video that I made on learning the 42 verses. I've taken these verses from the Mayapur Institute for Higher Technology. They're verses that are used for the Bhakti Shastri degree. So what I've done is I've made an analysis of these verses, and I've taken the essential points from the purport, because Prabhupada taught me, at least, in either directly, a few different ways. He taught me either directly or just in the way he was teaching his disciples, that he didn't just want us to learn verses, and even the translation it's fairly straightforward, but he was really concerned about the purport, the essential points, the essential philosophy. So even a young people, if they're like 11, 12, 13 years old, then they can understand philosophy. I mean, I've seen young kids 4 or 5 years old say things like, oh, I'm spirit soul, I'm not the body. But for a good philosophical understanding, usually 11, 12, 13 years old. And so kids can go beyond the just rote memorization and understand some philosophical concepts associated with those, with the verses. Because verses are meant to if you understand from the concept of Vedanta Sutra or the Vyakarana, there's a Panini's Vyakarana. It means the grammar of Panini, or Jiva Goswami has also written his Vyakarana, his grammar. So these grammars are sutras. A sutra is just a few words, 3, 4 words, maybe 5 words. And so within those sutras, you memorize the sutras, but you have to know the commentary. You don't memorize the commentary, but you have to understand the commentary within the sutra. When you memorize a sutra, just like this, Vyavasarnika buddhir, ekeha kurunandana. It's not a sutra, it's longer and it's easier to remember in some ways because it's in a verse, it's in a meter. So then I have to understand. So I know the words, I don't know the translation to that verse, Vyavasarnika buddhir, ekeha kurunandana, but I know the meaning of each word, and then I understand the essential points that Prabhupada makes in his purport in connection with those words, in rough connection with those words. So this is, I believe, what Prabhupada wanted us to understand. Anyway, just I'm trying to give you some hints, that's all, you know, that however you want to take
Thank
it.
you, Prabhu. Yes, yes, that's very, very helpful. Thank you, Prabhu.
One time, Prabhupada, there was a young boy, Keshava. I don't remember how old he was. He was probably 10 or 11. And the children were reciting verses for Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada singled him out and said, what is the difference between you and Paramatma? And the boy, I mean, here's this boy and Prabhupada, maybe he might have even known, I don't know, but he was on the spot, you know, and Prabhupada asked him, and he couldn't answer. So Prabhupada was interested in even that the children should know some philosophy. What to speak of his adult disciples. So everybody has to know the difference between Atma and Paramatma at minimum. So Bhagavan Narada Prabhu, you had something you wanted to say, or we've gone more than an hour here.
No, I think I'll pass. It's not so relevant after all.
So a little brief chanting. Shall I'll lead some chanting.
Okay.
I got my kartals here. I have to reveal that I'm wearing shorts.
Oh my goodness.
Prabhu, if you don't mind me asking, is Srila Prabhupada's murti is from temple, or is that a different murti?
From the temple, yes, because
Oh, okay.
Bhagavan Narada Prabhu is trying to sell the building so that we can progress.
Thank you so much for the darshan, Prabhu. Really feel so good to take darshan of Srila Prabhupada.
Yes,
It
nice.
is missing temple.
Yeah, I'm making a few videos. So when I make the videos, I have Prabhupada there. And I think it's a nice addition.
Prabhu,
Definitely,
before we begin chanting, I just had an idea, and see what you and Bhagavan Narada think about this, and everybody else too. But there's a first degree initiation test, and there's also a second degree initiation test, and you're talking about stuff that everybody should know. So why not, look at those tests and maybe maybe on Wednesday, some Wednesdays or something, go through that material at least the first initiation one, which is actually, if I recall, because I saw it years ago and it was real easy, but I mean, it was very 101 type of stuff. The second initiation test is, like you're saying, much more philosophically involved. But it would be, I mean, but if that's the standard that ISKCON is asking, for prospective disciples to have, as far as knowledge is concerned, it might be worth, taking a look at. What do you think about
Yeah, I agree. I think so. Can you dig those things up?
I can try. Bhagavan Narada might have better resources, but I can also ask my god siblings, because I think my god sister got a hold of that, and they may have changed it too, because this was like 10 years ago.
I think they do make changes to them, and I don't know for sure, but I've done some searches before on this, but I didn't pay careful enough attention. But the sense I got also is that some gurus give their own, they have their own approach to this. So the sense I got was that there's a sort of ISKCON wide one, and then there's
and then some do additional or make changes. Yeah.
So you might ask your guru what he uses then.
I'm sure that he defers to the temple president.
The standard one.
Yeah. I'm sure that he. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can get a hold of that, we can send it to me. I'll look it through.
I'll look into it. I'll ask my god sister Lavanga if she has copies or knows who does.
Yeah.
Okay, Haribol.
Hare Krishna. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaud, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaud, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaud, Hari Bol, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jaya Prabhupada.